Welcome to part 2 of how to play the flute. In this section we're going to cover how to open your case, how to put your instrument together, some parts of the instrument, and just a couple other little things. It seems kind of silly to talk about how to open the case, but it's actually very important. So right here I have my flute, and here's the case. And then you have a handle, and you're going to normally carry it like this. And so you can see how you might open it either this way and open the case this way, or you could open it this way. And there actually is a correct way and an incorrect way. Because, as I'll show you in just a second, the case is molded for the instrument. It sits in there a certain way, and you need to open it the right way, or else it actually could fall out. And the first thing you want to know before you open up your case is that it's not a toy. If it falls, it can break or damage and make it so that your playing doesn't work. It might sound like it works, but maybe certain notes don't work correctly, or sometimes it just won't work. And so you need to make sure you take care of it. You need to treat it gently and make sure that it's really taken care of. So let's talk about how to open it correctly so that it doesn't fall out and so that you don't break your instrument. So a couple keys, and this is not 100% universal because every company makes their instruments and their cases slightly different. But some things that do help. So on this one you have a label. This label right here says Yamaha. And so this is on the top of the case. So on this side you notice there is no label at all. So that's a good clue right there that this is the top of the case. Again, not all cases happen that way, but lots do. Another clue, this one has a handle. There are some flute cases that don't have handles because you can't kind of just hold it like this. But when they do have a handle, typically the handle is on the bottom side of the case. So it's down here. And another clue that is helpful is that when you open the latch of a case, the part that hangs down, or the part that has something to it other than just a little part here, is usually also the bottom of the case. So that when you open the case, it doesn't move all around. So those are some keys to help you know which is the top, which is the bottom. When you figure that out, then you can go ahead and open up that case, and inside you'll see the flute. And you'll see that the flute typically comes in 3 sections. We talked about these in our last video series, which was selecting an instrument, but we'll go through them one more time. Okay, so we have the foot joint. That's the smallest piece here. And as you look at this, now I wouldn't hold it like this for you. What you should do is set it in your lap, or you can set it on a couch or on a chair, somewhere it can't fall from. Okay, so I'll set it here from now on since I already showed you. So set it here. You have your foot joint. Okay, it's the smallest one. Another part you have of the flute is the middle joint. The middle joint is the largest section and has the most keys on it. So that's the middle joint. And then you have the head joint. And the head joint is the part where you actually blow into to make a sound. Okay? So those are your 3 parts of the instrument. So let's talk about how to put it together. Okay? So I would always just grab the middle joint first because that's the part that the other 2 go into. Then grab the foot joint. And you're going to put, there's one side that goes on, one side that doesn't. The side that has the keys closest to the hole here is the side that actually connects to the flute. The side that typically has a little more space doesn't connect to the flute, okay? And if you forget, you can just gently kind of try. You'll see if I try the wrong end, it doesn't go on, okay? Don't force it. And then if I go the other side, well, then it just kind of goes on there. And as you put that on there, you want to line it up so that this middle bar of this foot joint lines up with all of the keys of the middle joint. Most often I see students try and line up this bar with this bar, and it totally makes sense why you would do that. It seems like, oh, that seems like that's how it would go. Seems like you would line up these things together, but that's not how you do it. Okay, you actually line it up so that this middle bar lines right up with these keys. Okay, so I'll come a little closer so you can see that. Here's the middle bar here, and it lines up right up with these keys here. Okay, so it lines right up. Okay, after you've done that, then you're going to take the head joint and you're going to put it in to into the middle joint. Now this flute is, I really like this aspect of this flute, and that is, I'll show you. As you look right here, let's see if you can see it on the camera. Here we go. As you look right here, you'll see on the head joint there's these little notches. And there's one notch bigger than the rest. And then on the middle joint, there's this other little notch right here. And those notches show you right where to line it up at. And some people, obviously there's multiple, so some people might like it a little bit more in, and some people might like it a little more out. But if you have notches like that, I would highly recommend you start with the biggest notch lined right up with the notch on the middle joint. Okay? Now, a lot of flutes do not have those notches. Most flutes, I would say, don't have those notches. So how do you know how to line it up? Well, what I do is I take the flute and I look down these keys here, just like we lined up this bar here on the foot joint with the middle joint keys. The tone hole, or the embouchure hole, also lines right up with the keys and with that bar. So you can kind of just look down those keys and see if that tone hole is lined up. And this looks pretty good. And then you know that it's put together correctly, and it's ready to go. Now, a couple things. You don't need to push the head joint all the way in that it goes. The foot joint should go all the way in. The head joint, actually, if you'll just pull it out just a little bit farther, just so that there's a little bit of that discoloration from where it's not lacquered. And that's kind of a good point to start playing, just to have it right there. Okay, so that's how you put the instrument together. In your book, Accent on Achievement, Book 1 for Flute, on page 2, you'll see that there's a little blue box in the top right-hand corner. And it kind of talks about how to do what I just said. And it might put it in a slightly different order, but basically it explains it there. So I'd highly recommend that you reference that. Also on page 2, it has a picture of a flute, and it names all of the parts of the flute also. So if you forget, you can look there. And then on the bottom part of that page, it says Flute Care. And that's another section you'll want to read through. So I'll go through those sections really quick. So the first thing it talks about is, it says in there, it talks about a cleaning rod. Now, a cleaning rod looks like this. Okay, now this is just a rod, a metal rod. But on the end here has a little section where it looks like kind of like a giant needle that you would like sew with, right? And has a little eye of the needle right here, only it's not as little as a needle. And so this is a cleaning rod. Now it by itself isn't going to clean your flute very well. So what you need is a cloth. Now I have an old cloth here I use for cleaning instruments all the time. It's kind of looks dirty, but it's been washed. That's just how it looks now. So you get a cloth like this. Now you can get any number of types of cloths. You can buy cleaning cloths at music stores. This is just an old handkerchief. You can find things that work for you, and make sure you have a cloth. Most flutes are going to come with a cleaning rod. They won't usually come with a cloth. So you got to find your own cloth. So when you're done playing, let's say you've played your flute, and you've done all in band, and you've done a good job. Now it's time to pack up. Every day when you're done, you're going to take this cloth, you're going to take the corner of it and put it through that little spot there, and just pull this through a little ways. Okay? Now, once you do that, you want to make sure that you smooth this out all the way so that it's as smooth as it can. Oftentimes I have students who might put it in something like this, or bunched up or something, and then they try and push it through the flute, and then it gets stuck. And then they have to either have me help them get it out, and sometimes I haven't been able to, and they have to take it to a repair shop and have them fix it and clean it and get the cloth out. So smooth it out as good as you can. Then the next thing you do is you just take your flute, you've just played, you haven't taken it apart yet, and you put this in the end of the flute, and you just push it in there, okay? And you push it through until the end of that rod is all the way inside the flute, okay? Now you think, well, how am I going to get it out? Well, then you take the foot joint off, okay? And you put the foot joint, talked about the case. Here's the case. It has little molded sections for the flute, for where the parts go. And you got to put them in the right spot and in the right way. Because if you don't, when you close the case, you could damage your instrument if you don't put it away correctly. So you put the flute back in its spot, where it came from. If it doesn't fit and it doesn't seem like it's right, it's probably not. And move it around until you feel like, yep, that's where it goes. Okay? So we put the foot joint in. Now that we took the foot joint off, you can see that the rod's sticking out. This is the length of the foot joint. So you just push it in farther. Okay? And push it all the way into the flute. Okay? Then you take off this middle joint. And as I do that, you'll see that it's sticking out here, and you can grab it and pull it through. Now this inside has been wiped clean. And then put this middle joint away in the right spot, in the right way that it goes. And then I just push it through the head joint really quick. And clean that out. And then you put the head joint away. Okay? After that, you're going to take this off. Put your cleaning rod. Most flute cases have a spot for the cleaning rod. This one does as well. And it puts right there. Then I'm going to take this cleaning cloth. It might be slightly damp because it just dried out the inside of your flute. So for this flute, I would just fold it like this, fold it in half, and then fold it in thirds. And then it'll fit right here on top of the flute. The only thing I would be okay with you putting in your flute case with your flute is a cleaning cloth. And I would just put it on top of the flute and then close the case. Other than a cleaning cloth, you should not put anything inside your flute. Any papers, anything else, because the case is made so that it holds just the flute. And if you put other stuff in there, it's going to push on the keys, it's going to push on the rods, on different parts of the flute, and it's going to damage it. So don't put things inside your flute case. Once you do that, you close up the case, make sure you close it really good, and then you're ready to go put it away. And that's kind of the first thing you need to do. So if I were you, I would open the case, like we talked about. I would put the flute together. Make sure that it's put together correctly and everything's lined up the right way. I would practice swabbing it out, and then I would practice putting it away. And if you go through that process 2 or 3 times, it's going to really help. When we're in class and you go to put, and it's time to pack it up, I give you a certain amount of time at the end of the period to pack up, and you want to make sure you can do all of that and get done and be able to put it away before you need to go to your next class so that you're not late. So that's a good thing to practice a few times before you get to class. So that's the end of part 2 of our How to Play the Flute series. The next section is going to cover getting ready to play, and we'll talk about how to hold it, and we'll get going on playing this instrument. So we'll see you in the next video.